There are many women who love God deeply yet quietly wrestle with a battle that few people talk about openly. It is the struggle with lust, a conflict between the desires of the flesh and the calling of the Spirit. If you are a woman who feels chosen, set apart, and drawn toward a deeper spiritual life, you may sometimes wonder why this struggle still exists within you. You pray, you seek God, you desire purity, yet certain temptations seem to return again and again. This can leave you feeling confused, ashamed, or even questioning your spiritual identity. But what if the struggle itself is not proof of weakness, but part of a divine process? Throughout Scripture, we see that God often allows His chosen people to walk through internal battles that shape their character and strengthen their dependence on Him. The struggle with lust does not mean you are rejected by God. In many cases, it means He is refining you, teaching you, and preparing you for something greater. Today we will explore 9 spiritual reasons why God may allow a chosen woman to face this battle, and how this struggle can actually become a pathway to deeper transformation. 1. To teach spiritual discipline. One of the first reasons God may allow this struggle is to teach spiritual discipline. Discipline is not developed in comfort. It is formed in resistance, in moments when a person must choose between immediate gratification and long-term spiritual growth. When a chosen woman experiences the pull of lust, she is confronted with a very real internal battle between desire and conviction. In those moments, every decision matters. Each time she pauses, prays, redirects her thoughts, or chooses self-control instead of surrendering to temptation, she is actively strengthening her spiritual character. These moments may seem small and private, but they are deeply significant in the formation of a disciplined spirit. Just like an athlete builds physical strength by pushing against resistance during training, spiritual strength grows when a person resists impulses that do not align with their higher calling. God often uses these struggles as a training ground where patience, perseverance, and obedience are slowly cultivated over time. The struggle itself is not meant to destroy her, but to shape her into someone who can stand firm in moments of weakness. In this process, she learns that discipline is not about perfection, but about consistency. She learns that every victory, no matter how small, builds momentum. Over time, the habit of choosing prayer over impulse and reflection over reaction begins to reshape her inner world. The mind becomes more focused, the heart becomes more guarded, and the spirit becomes stronger. What once felt like an overwhelming battle slowly transforms into a series of opportunities for growth. Through this process, God is not simply removing temptation immediately, but rather teaching a deeper lesson, the power of self-mastery. This discipline will not only help her in this specific area, but will strengthen every other part of her life. God is not merely concerned with outward behavior. He desires inner mastery. While many people focus on controlling their external actions, God often works much deeper, addressing the thoughts, emotions, and desires that exist within the heart. Through this struggle, a chosen woman begins to understand that spiritual maturity is not just about avoiding certain actions, but about learning how to manage the internal world of thoughts and feelings. She starts to notice how certain images, environments, conversations, or moments of loneliness can influence her thoughts. Instead of allowing those influences to control her automatically, she gradually learns how to redirect her attention toward healthier and more constructive paths. This process requires patience and intentional effort. She may begin to develop new habits such as prayer, journaling, reading spiritual teachings, or spending time in environments that strengthen her values. Over time, these practices create a protective structure around her mind and heart. As she becomes more aware of her internal patterns, she gains the ability to intervene before temptation grows stronger. This awareness is an important part of spiritual discipline because it transforms a passive life into an intentional one. Rather than reacting impulsively to emotions or desires, she becomes someone who chooses her responses carefully. Slowly, discipline begins to become part of her identity rather than just a temporary effort. She becomes known not only for her faith, but also for her ability to remain grounded even when facing internal challenges. This transformation does not happen overnight, but through repeated moments of choosing alignment with her spiritual purpose. God uses the struggle as a tool to refine her character and strengthen her capacity for self-control. In the end, she emerges not just as someone who avoids temptation, but as someone who has developed the inner mastery necessary to walk confidently in her spiritual journey. 2. To humble the heart. Another reason God may allow this struggle is to cultivate humility within the heart. Spiritual growth can sometimes lead people to believe they are stronger, wiser, or more morally upright than others. When someone begins to develop faith and discipline, there can be a subtle temptation to compare themselves with those who appear to struggle more openly. However, God often allows certain weaknesses or ongoing battles to remain in order to remind His people that true strength does not come from personal perfection, but from divine grace. For a chosen woman, the experience of struggling with lust can become a powerful reminder of her humanity. It reveals that even the most spiritually minded individuals are not immune to internal conflict. This realization can initially feel discouraging, but in reality it creates the foundation for genuine humility. When she recognizes her own vulnerability, she begins to understand that she is not above anyone else. She learns that everyone carries hidden battles that may not be visible on the surface. This awareness softens the heart and removes the tendency to judge others harshly. Instead of feeling superior, she becomes more compassionate and understanding toward people who are struggling with their own weaknesses. Humility also deepens her relationship with God because it encourages her to rely on His guidance rather than trusting solely in her own strength. She begins to approach prayer with greater sincerity, acknowledging that she needs help and direction. In this way, the struggle becomes a spiritual equalizer that keeps her grounded. It reminds her that the journey of faith is not about appearing perfect, but about continually seeking growth and transformation. Through humility, her character becomes more authentic and her faith becomes more genuine. When a chosen woman recognizes her own vulnerability, she naturally develops greater compassion toward others who are facing similar or different struggles. Instead of reacting with judgment or criticism, she begins to see the complexity of human experience. Everyone carries emotional wounds, personal histories, and hidden challenges that shape their behavior in ways that others may not fully understand. Experiencing her own internal battle allows her to connect with this reality on a deeper level. She understands what it feels like to wrestle with thoughts she wishes she did not have, to feel discouraged by moments of weakness, and to desire change while still facing difficulty. This personal understanding makes her far more empathetic when someone else admits their struggles. Rather than responding with condemnation or moral superiority, she becomes a source of encouragement and support. Her words carry authenticity because they come from experience rather than theory. She can remind others that growth is possible because she is walking that journey herself. This kind of empathy reflects the heart of God, who consistently shows patience and mercy toward humanity. Through her own struggle, she learns to mirror that same grace. Over time, humility transforms the way she interacts with the world. She becomes slower to judge and quicker to offer kindness. She learns that spiritual maturity is not measured by how flawless someone appears, but by how much love and compassion they extend to others. In this sense, the struggle becomes a tool that shapes her character in ways that extend far beyond her personal life. It prepares her to become someone who uplifts others rather than condemns them, someone who understands pain and responds with mercy instead of pride. 3. To deepen dependence on God. God often allows certain struggles to remain in a person's life because they serve as a constant reminder of the need for His presence. When life flows smoothly and everything feels easy, people sometimes become comfortable and less attentive to their spiritual connection. They may still believe in God, but the urgency of seeking Him daily can fade when there are no significant challenges pushing them toward prayer. However, when a persistent struggle exists, it creates a continual invitation to return to God for strength and guidance. For a chosen woman who struggles with lust, this internal battle can become a powerful motivator that draws her closer to God again and again. Each moment of temptation becomes an opportunity to pause, reflect, and reach out spiritually for help. She may begin her day with prayer, asking for protection over her thoughts and emotions. During moments of weakness, she may whisper short prayers asking for clarity and strength. These repeated acts of seeking God gradually build a deeper relationship with Him. Instead of only turning to God during major life crises, she learns to involve Him in the daily details of her life. This continuous communication strengthens her spiritual awareness and reminds her that she is never truly alone in her battles. Over time, she begins to see that the struggle itself has become a bridge connecting her more closely to God's presence. What once felt like a burden gradually reveals itself as a pathway to deeper faith. Through this process, she discovers that dependence on God is not a sign of weakness, but a source of true strength. The struggle teaches her to rely not only on her own willpower, but also on divine guidance that empowers her to grow beyond her limitations. A chosen woman who struggles with lust may eventually discover that the battle is transforming the depth of her spiritual life. Because the challenge requires continuous attention, it naturally encourages her to seek spiritual wisdom and support more frequently. She may begin to study sacred texts more intentionally, searching for guidance and reassurance that she is not alone in her journey. She might listen to teachings, seek mentorship from spiritually mature individuals, or surround herself with a supportive community that encourages her growth. These actions strengthen her faith and create an environment where transformation becomes possible. As she continues to rely on God, she begins to notice subtle changes within herself. Her prayers become more sincere because they are no longer routine but deeply personal conversations with God about her struggles, hopes, and fears. She learns to trust that God understands her weakness and is patient with her progress. This trust allows her to approach her spiritual life with honesty rather than shame. Instead of hiding from God when she makes mistakes, she learns to return to Him with humility and a willingness to start again. This ongoing cycle of seeking, learning, and growing strengthens her spiritual resilience. Eventually, she realizes that the struggle has deepened her relationship with God in ways that comfort never could. Her faith becomes rooted not only in belief but also in lived experience. She knows what it means to rely on divine help, and she carries that knowledge into every other area of her life. In this way, the struggle becomes a spiritual anchor that continually draws her closer to the source of her strength. 4. To reveal hidden wounds. Lust is not always purely about physical desire. It can often act as a window into deeper emotional and psychological needs. God may allow this struggle in a chosen woman's life to reveal those hidden wounds, those areas of her heart that have remained unexamined, neglected, or unresolved. For instance, feelings of loneliness, past rejection, unresolved pain from previous relationships, or a deep longing for validation may subtly influence her thoughts and behaviors. While these wounds may have gone unnoticed in the busyness of everyday life, The tension created by lust brings them to the surface. In this way, what appears as a struggle with temptation is actually an invitation to deeper self-awareness and emotional healing. God, in His wisdom, allows these issues to emerge not to shame her, but to provide an opportunity for restoration. When she begins to face her inner pain honestly, she starts to see patterns and triggers that previously caused her to repeat destructive cycles. She may notice moments when feelings of insecurity push her toward behaviors that feel satisfying in the short term, but harmful in the long term. By confronting these vulnerabilities, she can begin to bring them into the light through prayer, reflection, and spiritual guidance. This process requires courage, as it often means acknowledging feelings she would rather ignore, but it also opens the door for true healing. God uses the struggle to illuminate areas that need transformation, allowing her to move from brokenness toward wholeness. Over time, the tension that once caused distress gradually becomes a tool for discovering and addressing emotional and spiritual gaps. The struggle, in effect, becomes a pathway to self-discovery and lasting inner peace. When a woman begins to examine her emotions and past experiences with honesty, she may uncover layers of pain that have been silently shaping her choices for years. These hidden wounds might stem from childhood experiences, unmet needs for love and acceptance, or even past relational betrayals that left her heart guarded and restless. The struggle with lust, rather than being purely destructive, functions as a mirror that reflects these unhealed areas, giving her a chance to confront and release them. As she turns to God in prayer, she begins to invite divine wisdom and comfort into spaces that have long felt abandoned or wounded. In this process, unhealthy patterns that have perpetuated shame, guilt, or self-condemnation start to lose their power. Gradually, God replaces these broken places with strength, resilience, and healthier emotional frameworks. The woman begins to understand that her desires, when guided and refined, are not inherently sinful, but signals pointing to areas that need attention and transformation. By engaging in consistent spiritual practices, such as meditation on scripture, seeking mentorship, or journaling about her thoughts and triggers, she can reshape her responses to temptation. Over time, her struggle ceases to be a source of shame and becomes a vehicle for deeper self-knowledge and spiritual growth. This awareness not only strengthens her relationship with God, but also equips her to live a life of integrity, emotional maturity, and purposeful action. What once appeared as a painful battle transforms into an avenue for healing, wholeness, and empowerment. 5. To strengthen spiritual awareness. Another important reason God may allow this challenge is to sharpen spiritual awareness. Struggle is often the teacher that reveals hidden truths about the spiritual realm and personal vulnerability. A chosen woman who faces temptation begins to notice how subtle thoughts, external influences, or certain environments can trigger desires that are misaligned with her higher calling. This heightened awareness allows her to recognize patterns in her thinking and behavior that she may have overlooked before. Each encounter with temptation becomes an opportunity to study her responses, understand her weaknesses, and grow in wisdom. Over time, this awareness transforms into proactive spiritual protection. She becomes vigilant about what she exposes herself to, whether that involves social interactions, media, or even internal dialogue, because she has learned that vigilance is necessary for spiritual health. Instead of blindly succumbing to temptation, she develops the ability to anticipate challenges, prepare strategies for resisting them, and redirect her energy toward positive pursuits. This knowledge is not just theoretical, it becomes lived experience. Through these lessons, she begins to understand the dynamics of spiritual warfare, the subtle ways the enemy attempts to distract, entice, or discourage her, and how divine guidance can provide protection and clarity. The struggle, in this sense, functions as both a mirror and a map. It exposes areas that need attention and simultaneously teaches the pathways to greater spiritual strength. By observing and learning from her own experiences, she cultivates wisdom that is uniquely her own, a wisdom born from confrontation with real-life challenges rather than abstract instruction. Spiritual awareness gained through struggle allows her to become intentional in every aspect of her life. Rather than walking through life passively or reacting impulsively, she begins to make conscious choices that protect her mind, heart, and spirit. She may establish boundaries in relationships, avoid certain environments, or adopt daily spiritual practices that fortify her inner life. Each decision becomes an act of mindfulness and devotion, reinforcing her connection with God and her commitment to living purposefully. Furthermore, this awareness encourages discernment, not just about external influences, but also about her own internal responses. She begins to notice when emotions like fear, boredom, or insecurity are driving her impulses, and learns to address those emotions constructively. Through this process, the struggle with lust becomes not only a lesson in resisting temptation, but also a tool for spiritual intelligence. The woman grows more sensitive to divine promptings, more attuned to the workings of her own heart, and more capable of navigating life with intentionality. This deepened spiritual awareness does not just protect her from recurring struggles, it equips her to minister to others, counsel those facing similar challenges, and live with a profound sense of clarity and purpose. What once appeared as an obstacle is revealed to be a master teacher, refining her perception, insight, and capacity to live in alignment with God's will. 6. To build empathy for others. People who have never faced certain struggles often find it difficult to understand or relate to those who do. God, in His wisdom, allows challenges like the battle with lust to cultivate empathy within a chosen woman's heart. When she experiences the weight of temptation, the shame of failure, or the struggle to choose righteousness over immediate gratification, she develops a deeper understanding of what it means to wrestle with personal weakness. She comes to know the emotions of guilt, confusion, and longing that accompany such struggles. This intimate knowledge of human vulnerability transforms her perspective, enabling her to connect with others in ways that would have been impossible without having walked through similar experiences. She learns to recognize that every individual has battles, some visible, many hidden, and that these struggles often shape the person more than the successes do. This understanding fosters a natural inclination to support rather than condemn. Rather than reacting with criticism when someone admits their weaknesses, she responds with encouragement, patience, and compassion. Empathy born from personal experience carries authority because it is rooted in authenticity. People sense when guidance or support comes from someone who truly understands their pain. Her own struggles, therefore, become a conduit for connecting with others on a deeper, more meaningful level. Through these connections, she not only supports those around her, but also participates in God's work of ministering grace and mercy to the world. As a woman experiences her own battle with lust and gradually learns to overcome it, she discovers that empathy is more than just understanding, it is action-oriented. She begins to use her testimony to uplift those who feel isolated or defeated by similar temptations. When someone shares their own struggle, she can offer practical advice, spiritual encouragement, or simply a listening ear, demonstrating that no one is truly alone in their journey. Her words carry weight because they are informed by lived experience rather than abstract theory. This ability to empathize also strengthens her spiritual maturity. By seeing herself in others, she practices patience, forgiveness, and compassion, qualities that are central to reflecting the heart of God. Furthermore, her own experiences of weakness teach her to be humble and non-judgmental. She realizes that struggles are part of the human condition and that overcoming them often requires both divine intervention and consistent effort. The empathy she develops becomes a tool for ministry, friendship, and leadership, allowing her to positively impact the lives of those around her. In this way, God transforms her personal challenge into a source of relational power. The struggle that could have been isolating instead becomes a bridge that connects her with others, teaching her the beauty of shared humanity, grace, and the transformative power of compassionate understanding. 7. To refine inner strength. God often uses resistance to refine inner strength, just as a blacksmith uses fire to shape steel. Spiritual resilience is not developed in ease and comfort, but in moments of tension, struggle, and opposition. Each time a chosen woman faces the pull of lust and chooses to resist, she is engaging in an act of inner fortitude. These moments, though difficult, function like repeated workouts for the soul, building stamina, patience, and self-control over time. At first, the struggle may feel overwhelming, exhausting, and even unfair, but it carries a divine purpose, the cultivation of a resilient spirit. Just as muscles grow through repeated stress and recovery, the spiritual and emotional faculties of a woman are strengthened by the repeated exercise of choosing integrity over impulse. She learns that true strength is not the absence of desire, but the ability to act rightly despite it. Each victory, however small, contributes to a growing sense of mastery over herself and her circumstances. She begins to see patterns emerge in her behavior, understand her vulnerabilities, and develop strategies for maintaining control in challenging situations. The cumulative effect of these small yet consistent victories is profound. What once seemed like a daily battle transforms into a testimony of growth, courage, and divine partnership. Through this refining process, she gains confidence not only in resisting temptation but in her overall capacity to handle life's challenges. Inner strength is no longer an abstract ideal but a lived reality, built step by step through the disciplined application of faith, prayer, and deliberate choices aligned with God's will. The struggle becomes less of a burden and more of a training ground, preparing her to face future trials with grace, wisdom, and fortitude. Over time, a chosen woman develops a deep, unshakable sense of self-control and confidence as a result of repeated acts of resistance. She discovers that temptation, while powerful, does not have to dominate her life or define her character. By consistently choosing purity, patience, and integrity over fleeting impulses, she internalizes principles of discipline that extend far beyond the immediate struggle. The ability to withstand these internal conflicts transforms into a broader resilience that influences her decisions, relationships, and spiritual walk. Each instance of self-mastery reinforces her understanding that she is capable of navigating life's challenges with intention and divine guidance. Furthermore, the refinement of inner strength enables her to serve as a model for others, demonstrating that it is possible to endure and grow even in the face of persistent trials. What might have once seemed like a source of shame or limitation becomes, in reality, a testament to her courage and dedication to living a life aligned with God's purpose. By embracing the struggle as a refining tool, she not only fortifies her spiritual foundation but also gains the wisdom to mentor, support, and inspire others who face similar battles. This enduring inner strength ensures that she is equipped for every challenge that may come, not through human effort alone, but through a partnership with God that transforms resistance into a powerful catalyst for personal growth, spiritual depth, and long-lasting resilience. 8. To redirect desire toward purpose. Desire itself is not inherently evil. It is a form of energy that God placed within human beings to drive creativity, connection, and action. Lust becomes problematic only when it is misdirected or allowed to dominate the heart and mind. God may permit a struggle with lust so that a chosen woman learns how to recognize, manage, and channel this powerful energy into purposeful endeavors. This process requires self-awareness, intentionality, and spiritual guidance. As she becomes more attuned to the desires that arise within her, she begins to discern which impulses are harmful and which can be harnessed for growth, service, and creative expression. For example, the intensity of her passions, once focused on fleeting gratification, can be redirected toward artistic pursuits, leadership roles, acts of service, or spiritual development. The energy that might have once led to struggle can instead become a driving force for meaningful accomplishments. By choosing to redirect desire, she discovers that God's design for human energy is not meant to suppress natural inclinations, but to refine and guide them toward higher purposes. This redirection fosters both discipline and creativity, allowing her to participate in God's work in a dynamic and impactful way. Over time, the woman realizes that struggle with lust is not punishment, but an invitation to transform a potentially destructive force into one that builds her life, benefits others, and honors God. The tension she once felt becomes a teacher, showing her how to convert raw energy into intentional action aligned with her calling. Instead of allowing desire to control her, a chosen woman learns to redirect that intensity toward activities that enrich her life and align with God's purpose. She begins to see the potential in every strong feeling or longing as a signal pointing towards something constructive. Spiritual reflection, prayer, and mentorship help her identify areas in which she can use her energy to produce tangible results, whether through creative expression, acts of service, or personal development. Each act of redirection reinforces the principle that God does not remove desire to limit joy, but to cultivate wisdom in channeling it appropriately. Gradually, she experiences a sense of fulfillment and balance that was previously unattainable when desire was left unchecked. Her life begins to reflect a deeper intentionality, where passion fuels positive outcomes rather than conflict or regret. By mastering the art of directing desire toward meaningful purpose, she discovers a new level of freedom, the freedom to enjoy her passions without being enslaved by them. In this way, God transforms what was once a source of struggle into a vehicle for creativity, productivity, spiritual growth, and the manifestation of her unique gifts. The very energy that could have caused harm becomes a catalyst for blessing, both for her life and for those she influences. Lust, when guided, is transformed into purpose, and struggle becomes a teacher of divine wisdom and constructive living. 9. To prepare her for a greater calling. God often allows struggles to shape a chosen woman because these experiences are essential preparation for future responsibility and leadership. People who eventually guide, mentor, or influence others often cannot do so effectively without first walking through their own challenges. Struggles with lust, for example, can provide lessons in self-discipline, integrity, empathy, and spiritual awareness that theory alone cannot teach. By facing and overcoming these internal battles, a woman gains lived experience, a knowledge of resilience, patience, and divine dependence that equips her to lead with authenticity. These experiences become a foundation upon which she can build influence, providing real-life insight and encouragement to others who face similar challenges. In addition, the process of overcoming struggle demonstrates the transformative power of God's grace. When a chosen woman emerges on the other side of her battle, she does so with confidence not in her own perfection, but in the sustaining strength and guidance of God. This credibility, rooted in lived experience rather than abstract instruction, allows her voice to resonate with authority, compassion, and wisdom. People are more receptive to guidance when it is offered by someone who has experienced the very challenges they face. And God uses these moments to prepare her to be an effective instrument in His hands. The struggle, while often uncomfortable, is ultimately a strategic preparation for the greater calling that lies ahead. When a woman overcomes her struggles, she gains a unique perspective that combines humility, wisdom, and resilience. She learns to speak not from theory or assumption, but from personal experience, making her testimony both relatable and inspiring. Her journey becomes proof that transformation is possible, that weaknesses can be converted into strengths, and that God's grace can lift anyone from despair into empowerment. The lessons learned through struggle enable her to mentor, guide, and uplift others with authenticity and empathy. Furthermore, she becomes a living example of perseverance and spiritual growth, demonstrating that every challenge, no matter how private or shameful it may feel, can contribute to a higher purpose. In this way, God transforms what could have been a source of discouragement into a platform for influence, leadership, and service. Her story becomes a testimony of divine preparation, illustrating that even the most difficult internal battles are opportunities to equip her for greater responsibilities. Through the struggle, she is refined, strengthened, and positioned to fulfill a calling that requires wisdom, empathy, and resilience. Ultimately, what may have seemed like a personal limitation is revealed as a divinely orchestrated training ground, preparing her to impact the lives of many and to walk confidently into the purpose God has designed for her life. If you are a chosen woman who finds yourself battling lust, remember that your struggle does not define your worth or your calling. Many times, the very battles we wish would disappear are the ones God uses to shape our character, deepen our faith, and prepare us for greater purpose. Do not lose hope. Continue seeking God, continue growing, and remember that transformation is a journey. This is the Woman of Light channel. If this message reached you at the exact moment you needed it, consider subscribing for more spiritual encouragement, and type 1111 in the comments section as a sign that you received this message in divine timing and as a declaration of blessings over your life. Thank you for watching.